All right. Are we ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Yeah, let's kick this one
Okay.
off. All right. You lead.
You bet. You bet. Blake, you often say that Bahama Bucks is in the people business. What does that mean?
For us, the people business is quite clear. I think we learned early on that it's all about our serve. And I think I heard a mentor say this to me one time. He's like, Blake, people are way more hungry for honor, dignity, and respect than they are your desserts. And I think so. We've always made it a point to be serving honor, dignity, and respect.
Yeah.
So I think that's in a nutshell, really who we are.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I
you?
agree. People business, I think we see and serve others.
Yeah.
And, I do think that you did say from one of our franchise conferences, you stated from the main stage, you told our entire franchise family, we are no longer in the snow business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a whole different experience economy. You have to do people well, and that means you've got to see and serve them well, and you got to love them up. And
Yeah.
so we starts at the top. It's all the way down to front line, all the way to the guest. It just you got to love your people. Period.
Yeah. And I also love that we get to love all demographics. In our shops, it's kids, it's even the senior citizen demographic. It's all demographics. And there's not a lot of businesses that can say that and get to serve people in that realm. And of course, I love kids, and I love putting smiles on people's faces, and then just serving our Avalanche crew as they're serving our guests is super important. And we've even told our support center, our franchise family, that, if you're not serving the snow, then you need to be serving the people that are. Yeah. And so we are definitely in the people business.
Love that. Love that. Okay. If you had to describe Bahama Bucks culture in 3 words, Miss Kippi, what would they be?
I think you and I could do this together. I'm gonna take a wild card here, and I'm gonna count to 3, and I think we could say the 3 words together. And if I'm wrong, then I don't know. But I think
it's risky.
It is risky.
All right.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Flavorful,
friendly, and fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Those have been the 3 words we've hung our hat on for a long time.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, you obey me. No?
No,
Oh, okay,
no,
yeah.
that is not.
Yeah, we've said that a lot. Flavorful, friendly, fun, and really for us, and I think support center to franchise family, all the way to the Avalanche crew. We also say 3 words. That is, be the blessing.
Yeah.
And if you can be the blessing, you'll be flavorful, friendly, and fun.
Yeah.
And so that's a neat part about Bahama Bucks and being part of our culture.
Yeah.
Is we want you individually being flavorful, friendly, and fun.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of hard work, but that's who we are.
Yep.
That's really good.
Yep. I think those 3 words really encompass our culture. They encompass, hopefully, the kind of people we look for when we're hiring. Mm-hmm. You still have to work, but if we can make things flavorful, we can flavor lives. If we can bless our guests by being friendly, and then create that vibe that's fun, and do some fun things along the way while we're all working, it just makes work a lot more pleasant, a lot more enjoyable, a better place to be.
And I think when we talk about the fun aspect, it's always inclusive, right? We want to be inclusive in that. And I'll never forget when we got that little scary butler person, and when Eric turned 50 or whatever, we hid it in his desk, and he walked in, and it scared him. So he elevated the game, and he bought like that 8 or 9, 10-foot clown that was
horrible.
haunted. And he would position it over people's desk and things like that. So, it starts at the office culture and everywhere, but it really is the heartbeat of our shops. Is we just want to have fun. We just want to serve some fun to people. And I think when we can do that as owners and as Avalanche crew members and as franchise family, it just permeates everything from, all the fun stories we've had in the shop to keeping that youthful spirit and energy all the way through the company as well. So good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff even in the shops. I think when we talk about fun and flavorful and friendly, one of the things they usually have a newbie do, which I'm going to probably expose a secret here, but they will generally, a manager will have a newbie go mop the walk-in freezer. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, you take a wet mop into a walk-in freezer, you cannot mop the floor. It sticks straight to it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think if you're a newbie and you can accept that and you can find a laugh along the way, then I think that just really sets the vibe of like, hey, we're here to bless guests, but let's have a little fun along the way and let's do some stuff that makes our culture really fun.
Yeah. Usually if they can mop the floor, they also lick the frozen pole too. Just like that works out real well for everybody.
Please no. But yeah. So good stuff. I really do love our culture. I love working there.
Oh, I totally agree.
So what's a story that perfectly captures the kind of company we strive to be?
Oh, wow. That's kind of a loaded question. Striving to be, okay, for me, I think it boils down to one of the original serves I had. And it came down to that first serve. And I'll never forget making a grape snow on the first day. We had a father-son walk up. Kid's about 7 years old. They order a baby snow. And I make this grape snow, and I'll never forget, we ring it up, 75 cents. They put 75 cents on the counter. And when I go hand that kid the snow, he looks up, and when he grabs it, he gasped. And I was like, wow, what was that? Because that felt good. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the look in his eye, the smile on his face. And I knew right then, I'm like, oh my goodness, we just served a little bit of joy. Mm-hmm. And I had not expected that. And I think from that moment, that's what hooked me to saying, okay, this is bigger than just a snow, right? Because that's just flavor and ice. But the real magic behind it was the ability to serve people and meet people in a moment and hand them a little bit of joy.
Yeah.
And I think that was a fantastic moment for me. And I think that's the culture and the company that we are still striving to be, that we want to meet guests where they are and at least bring a reprieve, bring a small amount of joy in their day and help them just celebrate life.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's really the heartbeat of who we are and what we're striving to do from shop level all the way to shops across the nation, everywhere.
Yeah. So. And I don't think I knew when we were in our 20s and we were running the shop in Arizona and running the shop here in Lubbock, I didn't really grasp the impact that the crew had on each other. And when you think about a company and at that point, we're in our 20s, we are in survival mode. We're just, we're trying to make sure we keep the business doors open, pay the electricity bills. Whenever I remember one time we took the crew in Arizona. We took them on we had like 12 employees, I think, and 12 Avalanche crew members. And we took them out to go river rafting.
Absolutely.
And we spent the whole day together I didn't realize like the relationships that we're developing because of Bahama Bucks. And so now, fast forward 35 years and I'm going to crew members' weddings and half the people there are Bahama Bucks people, and that's where they met. I can't even wrap my mind around the people side, the relationship side that is being built within the company. And that's where, when I think about a legacy business and what's going to outlive us, and it's the people that they feel called too.
Yeah.
And there's no better joy, I think, to see other people, really grasping our passion for the brand and for the people they serve. And so, man, that's what you strive for at the end of the day, is just looking at our support center that reaches out to the franchise family and everybody is on board, and all the way down to, our corporate party that we just do little Wednesday waves and we have breakfast together, or what have salsa challenges and ice cream challenges, these little bitty things, but it all adds up to big things that I didn't really put all those pieces together because it's just what you do. Yeah. It's what we think we need.
We think it's normal.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's time, because when you talk about pursuing a passion, and if your business is your passion, it's going to take people. Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting, and I think what we've loved and enjoyed about this journey, is you take people, they become colleagues, which become friends, which ultimately become neighbors, or they ultimately become family.
Yeah.
And we call it our franchise family, or the Bahama Bucks family. And it's kind of like that club. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And we know what you've walked through. We know what you've gone through. But to your point, we grow alongside you. And I think it is just, it's time side by side where you're working on projects, you're passionate about what you're doing, and you're finding the purpose, but we're also serving alongside together. And there's nothing better when you get to serve alongside someone else to benefit someone else. I think that's where some deep connections are made, is rallying around that.
Yep.
So, wow.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think we can always strive to be better, and that's what we do.
Can. Tell us about a moment where a guest or a crew member changed your perspective.
I have. There was some big impacts during the first shop we opened in Phoenix, or in Tempe, Arizona. We had one specific crew member named Stephen Lent, and didn't come from a great home. He was raised in a single parent family. We often picked him up for work and took him home. But man, I loved that kid. And we went to his football games, and he was a hard worker. He had to work. And I'll never forget, there was, and this was really, I have to set the stage because this was before podcast, and where was Craig Rochelle and Dave Ramsey and Patrick Lencioni and the podcast you could listen to or read books that help you lead better. But Stephen was in charge of the shop one Friday night. We had decided we could finally let go to grow, and he could do it. And sure enough, we had a couple of newbies, and Stephen, it was super busy, and he called us that evening, and I knew, man, no news is good news, but when you hear the phone ring, that's usually not a good sign. And sure enough, about 11:30, he called us that evening, and he said, Kippi, you're going to be really mad at me. And I'm like, oh boy. And I was like, what happened? He said, I just couldn't take it. I was working with all those newbies. We got so busy, and they kept forgetting orders, because you have to remember, we didn't have a POS, KDS that remembered all the orders. You had to remember every single order. I can understand Stephen's frustration. And he said, I couldn't take it. And I got so upset, and I won't say the names of these team members, but he said, I just turned around, I couldn't handle it, and I kicked the wall. And I actually kicked a hole straight into the sheetrock, and there's a giant hole in our wall right under the flavor rack. And I'm like, and I am 23 years old, and I'm like, we can't afford to fix this, Stephen, and I remember pausing right there and thinking, I need to handle this for Stephen. I switched my brain into, we can't afford to fix that, Stephen. What are you thinking? To what would be the best answer for Stephen? And I covered the phone, because this is not a cell phone. We're on a landline here. And I'm like, Blake, Stephen kicked a hole in the wall. And I said, well, how do we handle this? And we both decided, hey, Stephen, can understand. And you're not going to get fired, but you're going to fix the wall.
Yeah. And I love your solutions, because that was Blake teaching Stephen how to repair a wall.
So on the next day, Sunday afternoon, Stephen and Blake went up and learned how to patch drywall.
And I hate that kid to this day.
No, you don't.
Anyway.
No, you don't. But I think that's a story that I remember thinking, I got to think bigger than just being reactive. And now that our brand is bigger and it's beyond just a Stephen Lent situation, there's still those situations, people have, now we're having crew members that get married and have babies or have major life events that affect their work, and you've got to think beyond the work. And those stories resonate with me on growing people and developing the human being.
Yeah, and I think what worked for Stephen too is he was an all-in guy. Yeah. I mean, it was his choice was either kick the person or kick the wall, and so I felt in that moment, and so did you. He made the better choice.
Right.
But when you have an all-in person, you're like, man, they're worth saving, they're worth walking alongside, and they're worth developing. And he became a great leader as well.
Yep,
And so
he sure did.
as we grew, this just kind of came to mind. We talked about serving joy and all of those things. We were kind of that weird family. I remember as our boys grew, we did all the sports camps and all that, but we're sending our kids to leadership camp, and we sent Zyler off to leadership camp, and he came back, and that Sunday morning we all get up, you had made breakfast, and like, hey boys, this morning we're going to debrief Zyler. We're going to unpack with Zyler and figure out what he learned at leadership camp. And, this 13-year-old boy starts just unpacking kind of the lessons he learned and all that. But his lesson that he taught me was through a question as well. And he just simply asked me, he said, hey, Dad, do you know why everybody, if you make somebody's product wrong, they get so mad at you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I know why they get mad at me. I'm like, we made their product wrong. And this 13-year-old kid looks at me and he's like, no, Dad, that's not it at all. He said, it's not because you made their flavor wrong. You screwed up their mini vacation. They come to you for a mini vacation, and that's why they're mad about it. And the penny dropped. And I'll never forget from that moment forward, we started teaching the mini vacation that people are coming to us for an experience. Honor, dignity, and respect. They need that love. They need someone to say, hey, it's going to be a great day. And we need to be that moment. And I'll never forget, because once the penny dropped for me, it dropped for the whole franchise. And we still teach it today, something that a 13-year-old boy taught me. And I grabbed a napkin, wrote down mini vacation, and we still teach it today.
Yeah.
So I think it's really what you learn out there, and what you learn from your guests, what you learn from your crew, what you learn from your kids a lot of times.
Yeah.
That really helps shape
truly,
us.
I think we've learned more from our mistakes.
Absolutely.
When we make mistakes, that's where we're like, yeah, we've got to fix that, and not let it make us angry. We've got to fix it. Yeah.
So,
all right. Blake, what's your favorite story of a lifelong connection made at Bahama Bucks, either a guest or a crew member?
Okay. We've got lots of these, so I don't want to run in your lane, because I know you've got lots of these. But a lifelong connection that I think is kind of unaware is sometimes with your vendors. And when we started serving the Bahama Rama Mama, where we take a scoop of Bluebell ice cream, put it in a cup, that was year one. And I was going to the grocery store buying cartloads of Bluebell ice cream. It had just come to Lubbock in 1990. They just opened in Lubbock, or had started servicing Lubbock. And I'm buying all these cartloads and cartloads. And one day, we'd been open for a month or so. A truck pulls up, and it's a Bluebell truck. And the guy was like, hey, I don't know if you know this, you can buy it off the truck and we'll deliver it. And I'm like, oh, you deliver? I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And he's like, oh, hey, you can also get it in 3-gallon tubs, because we're buying the half gallons. I'm like, oh my gosh, you get it, in a bigger tub. And then he was like, yeah, and I can sell it to you cheaper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a trifecta. And I thought that was so great that, this guy, the driver back then was Ty Kuntz. And I'll never forget, the lessons he taught me. And, he drives off, he tells his boss, that's the weirdest little snow shack, they'll never make it, something like that. And I'm like, that dude's a little different. He was never going to make it as a driver. And here we are 35 years later. He's one of the executives at Bluebell. We've grown our brand, and we've had a partnership that has lasted over, or at least 35 years now. And I love being able to look back, not just with friends, family, and all of our coworkers, but even with some of our vendors too.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Of course, I love Ty Kuntz, and he comes to every one of our snow summits, and he's just been a lifer. For me, I definitely go to our crew, starting with even as far back as I can remember. I still, Stephen Lint, Kaylin Oda, some of those original OG crew members, my brother, your brother, and some of my college friends that we work together every day, and we still have relationships. But I think it just is hard for me to wrap my mind around, like Colton Knox and Stephanie meeting at Bahama Bucks. And Colton, was the son of one of my best friends. His mom was one of my, and still one of my dearest friends. and that all of her kids have at one point or another had their hands at Bahama Bucks, and some are still there today. And it's so cool, They
met, got married, and are still at Bahama Bucks.
And have 4 amazing kids, and that relationship connection happened because of a little snow shack,
Right.
But even still, I just, some of the managers that we've had in the past or have now, I still take them to lunch. I enjoy those relationships that when you see them leave Bahama Bucks, it's their first job as a 16-year-old, 15, 16, and they grow through their high school and college years. They grow as leaders, and then they go off and become doctors and lawyers and nurses, and they do amazing things, and they send you an email or write you a letter from the military, and they let you know the things that they learned at Bahama Bucks are what is carrying them to the next thing. And you're like, what? Like, we just served snow, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, Steven's a sheetrocker. I mean, who knew?
Well, I know from his life that some of those hard things he's had to go, I still keep in touch with Steven. But I don't think when we started Bahama Bucks, I saw it in this capacity.
We didn't realize the personal impact it would have.
No. And some of my best friends are Bahama Bucks people.
Absolutely.
And it just makes my heart explode.
It reminds me where we picked up a good staff member who now is our number one R&D development guy, Matt Ewing. And what was funny about that is he was hired in a shop. And one of our managers saw him as hey, that's kind of a handsome guy. And she was a manager, and she got kind of sweet on him. And she was like, okay, this is not going to work out. So instead of firing him, now you can date in a shop, and a lot of people do, and they found their spouse, right? But she just didn't want that messiness, right? So she starts recruiting at the warehouse for us to hire this guy. And we're like, what is going on? She's like, well, he's okay in the shop. He'd be better in the warehouse. We're like, that's such a weird recommendation. So we hire the guy. Next thing you know, they're dating. Mm-hmm. Years later, they get married. Uh-huh. Matt's career, her career, both grow at Bahama Bucks. She becomes a director. She's now my executive right-hand person. Laura, shout out. And then you have Matt Ewing, who develops all of our fantastic, great flavors. He's one of the best food science, great tasting, can break down anything, and develops all these wonderful products.
Yep.
And his path was determined by a girlfriend who said, no, you're not going to be in a shop. No. You are going to go the production route.
Yeah.
And so you have those stories like that. And so I think the personal aspects, when we talk about that, and that's not everybody's experience. You're not going to go to Bahama Bucks and marry some hottie, or whatever. But it is fun to see those relationships blossom. I mean, even True and Abby,
Yeah.
Their story is special.
Our son worked in the shop, our youngest son, and he ended up meeting during COVID.
Yeah.
All those high school kids worked at the shop together. And who knew that Bahama Bucks would be the highlight of their senior year, because everything shut down, but we did not.
Yeah.
And those kids worked together every day, and that was the only thing they had. They didn't have prom. They weren't having graduations. They weren't having graduation parties. And so this group of Avalanche crew members in our shops would work, drive-through only all day together. And then at night, they would text me and say, is it okay if we just hang out in the shop? Because they had nowhere to go. And I didn't care. And they were just playing cards or doing whatever. And then they would teach each other to two-step in the back parking lot and jitterbug and all these things. And then I noticed that our youngest son was pretty sweet on one of the girls that went to a different high school. And sure enough, by the time they started college that next year, they were an item.
Yeah.
And they dated all through college. And when it came time for True to propose to Abby, I, as the mom, only have, a little bit of say in some of this when it comes to weddings, but I can sure help my boys set up a pretty good proposal. And so I'm like, True, let's do it here. What about here? This would be a great picture. And he was adamant. He's like, Mom, I am asking Abby at the place I fell in love with her. And I'm like, okay, where is that? And he's like, at Bahama Bucks.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have to ask her there. That is where I met her, and that's where we fell in love. And I was like, okay, we can make it cute. And sure enough, I mean, he gets down on one knee at Bahama Bucks with our So Short LTO Captain Crunch promo in the background. So their proposal pictures are in the shop with the Captain Crunch LTO in the background. And Abby loved it, True loved it, and how would you know that your son's going to meet the love of his life at Bahama Bucks? Right. And that there's just so many stories that we could sit here for hours and talk about the different relationships that have been lifelong. If we could go back and give ourselves one piece of advice when we were starting out, what would it be?
For me, it bubbles up pretty easy because it's the advice my father gave me early on. When I was, struggling before a business, trying to fix things and all that, he would just look at you and say, look at it and figure it out. And so those 3 words, figure it out, have probably driven me really to this day. I mean, we have hard meetings sometimes, and we're looking at expansion and scalability and distribution and all those things. And it comes back to that spirit of figure it out.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is when you lead in a mindset like that, your crew, your team, everyone at Support Center, your franchisees, they're facing huge problems too. But if you have that gear where you're like, man, we just got to figure it out. We got to find a workaround. We got to work through this, go over it, around it, whatever we've got to do, but we figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the bigger driver for me even today is figure it out.
Yeah, and I think we did. I mean, and even in our just working together and being married and having all of the issues that we had when it came to, having to moving into a 1-bedroom apartment that was kind of sketch. We just had to figure it out. We made the most of it. And, I like the question because it's not asking what would we do differently. Yeah. It's like, what piece of advice would you give yourself or what, and what did we learn? And for me, for sure, it was that you can always work harder than you think you can. Yeah.
It's always an extra gear.
There's an extra gear, and you think you're tired, you think you're done, but you got more in the tank, and that's what it takes. Yeah. And just knowing that you got to go, you got to look ahead, keep your eyes up, and I just learned that when it came to running our business. But I also think I learned that you got to have a higher calling. This really is something that the Lord put on your heart, that we're doing this for a ministry. This is our calling. Yeah. And so when you when you see it above and it has a bigger purpose, then, I think the impact is there because you know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I would agree. Figure it out. And, as far as quitting goes, because every entrepreneur out there, every business owner has an opportunity every day to quit. Every day there's a problem that you're like, it's just not worth it. And I think my advice on that I would kind of self-talk my through is like, oh, you can quit, but not today.
Yeah.
Not today. And, when our kids would come to us, Dad, I want to quit. I'm like, oh, you can, but not today. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about that some other time.
That's true.
It really developed a grit gear when you just tell yourself, I know I can quit, but not today.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, Miss Kippi, what makes Bahama Bucks special?
Wow. I mean, I hate it seems redundant.
Yeah.
The people. I think the people, our teams, our franchise family. But I think what makes it special is we get to serve smiles. We get to serve snow products that bring some joy to people. Yeah. And that's what makes it special. I tell the newbies, the Avalanche crew, when we're doing orientation with all these new team members, I just say, hey, the difference in this job versus maybe working in a fast food establishment, that people have to eat, a meal.
Yeah.
But Bahama Bucks, people choose to be there for a reason. They need a break. They want to celebrate. They have their son for the weekend. They are celebrating. They're getting away from something. They have a first date. They come and choose to share a piece of a joy in their life with Bahama Bucks, and that's what makes us special. We get to be a part of their life, that they're choosing to come there for a reason. And it's not just for a meal and sustenance. They are coming there to be together with people.
To do something, And I think when you look at our vision to bless our guests by creating the ultimate tropical dessert experience, what I often think about is it's the people, and how I usually tell most people, it's the people that bring the magic. The magic starts with you. You are the experience. We can design great products and great snows and all of that, but it's really about the people, because it's how they serve, how they deliver it, and how they connect. And if you want to have impact, then it really is about, like what you're saying, it is those people and it is the connection, because they bring it to life. So to me, I think that's what makes it most special. I know the flavors are fantastic. I know all of that. The products are great. But man, it's the people that bring it to life. Yeah. Every person plays an intricate role. And I love that that's what brings it to life and makes it special for me.
I agree. I agree. I think you're a great leader too, Blake. You've said.
I think you're a great wife. You know what? You're pretty nice too.
Stop it. I just think that there's a part that though your leadership has been super impactful, that has made the brand really special. You have a charismatic way about you that leads the brand well. And I think you're creating such a culture that's going to live beyond you, that, and I'm not trying to.
It doesn't sound like it.
But it's the truth.
Thank you.
It is. And
I
mean, from the very beginning, that's why I got on board and said, yeah, let's do this. When you pitched your idea of let's do this little snow shack, is because I followed your leadership, and because of your charismatic ways, and how you've built the brand and created such a great team of leaders that buy in.
Well, and thank you. You're very kind for saying that. And I know you can say that
true.
Because you know of the men and the women that have helped pave our path, and all the people that have been a big part of developing us and the brand. So thank you for that. And I've always said this about you, is you're the heartbeat. I can be the flavor and the fun and all that and bring the vision, but you bring the heart. And so that's your role that you get to play in. And thank you for that, because you are a kind individual, and I am not. So we have to have both.
That is not true. You are one of the nicest people I know.
All right. If you could hit replay on any moment in your journey, not to change it, but to relive it, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
Snap.
For how long? Is it a 24-hour
Feels like I've been on replay for a long time.
I think it was my turn to ask you that question first, but that's okay.
Was it? Did I go out of order?
Care.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it would be fun to go back to the OG shop and work in there, but do you know what you know now, or is it just go back and live it, not realizing that you're in it? I would love to have a day back in that original shop when it was you and I and some of the team, whichever way. But
it was better when we had the team, because it wasn't just you and I.
It's true. Yeah. That is true. And I wasn't in summer school and all those things.
The question said, and not change it. And so I've got one that I don't think I would change, but I would love to relive, because in the early days, you remember my obsession with flipping bottles.
Blake.
Yeah, so the movie Cocktail comes out, and Tom Cruise is flipping bottles, and I'm like, this is
I would not be there, because I would not choose that moment.
This is so awesome. I am going to flip the bottle. And we had the lines that were fantastic. The crowd is rocking. It is the snow bars of all snow bars. The music is hopping, and I look at you with that strawberry cheesecake bottle, and I'm like, I'm going to flip it. And you're like, don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, today is the day. And you were like, do not flip that bottle. And I grabbed that bottle, and I flipped it.
No. You smacked it down first. I remember, I'm there.
Smack it down, have my snow. And I flip that bottle and catch it, and the pour is perfect. And it was such an awesome moment. And I look up, and I had flipped it, and there was a line of red. And I just remember looking at you with red syrup running down your forehead.
See, I would not live this moment again.
And I was like, oh, snap. That wasn't as good as I thought it would be. And your back is towards the crowd, and the crowd loved it. I'm like, and you look at me and say some words. But what I remember most is that huge crowd that we were serving, and you walked out.
I walked out the back door.
You walked out the back door.
Because there was nowhere else to go.
It's me and all of my flavor fans. And the service just got real slow. Yeah, it wasn't so funny after that.
So
I just remember
you would
how
relive
mad
that?
you were.
You would
I mean,
relive...
the moment, Kippi, that was probably my one glory moment at Bahama Bucks when I had the crowd at my fingertips, and we were one unit.
We were.
Yeah, no, me and the crowd.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, because I was like, we were
a unit until the mistake.
Yeah, and the red strawberry cheesecake pouring down my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
was still a great flip, though. So I probably would go back to that moment and just relive the glory.
Okay. Well, maybe I would go back to that, and maybe I would respond a little differently because, it's all okay at the end of the day. But I had red syrup in my hair coming down my face.
Yeah.
And
it had been a long 12-hour day, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
we had been working a while.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely would go back to the OG shop too. So some of those days of, I remember we had one crew member that would pull in the dirt parking lot at like 55 miles an hour, and he'd almost do what do you call that?
A donut.
Yeah, and park his little Toyota Celica or something. Do what is that called? Where you flip the car in?
Oh, a Rockford.
A Rockford. He would do a
old school.
And he would pull in, and I'm like, Aaron, wow, like. Please don't hit any of our guests.
He would come in hot. He would come in hot.
I mean, there's just so many funny stories about that OG shop, and I would go back to working there.
And I think one of the sweet moments was some of the stuff that we would go back to, and we did this kind of white glove service. We'd set your whole shop up. We'd do everything because we had to. But I would go back, now that we have grandchildren and all that, and relive that with the three boys because they traveled with us. Mm-hmm. And we go in, and I remember Tom and Cindy, Mom and Dad would be there, and Eric and Ingram, and a lot of anybody we could get help us. And we would be at a shop for 2 or 3 weeks, finishing it out, setting it up, training the crews, and all of that. And those were some sweet moments as well. You don't realize working with 3 generations of family in one shop and getting to know the franchisees intimately and personally. Those were some sweet moments.
Those were some fun days too, and but there's some hard ones in there. I don't think I would want to go back and relive, but I'm glad we went through it,
Sure.
So, all right. How has the brand evolved over the years, and what's remained the same?
Okay. Evolved over the years. One of the things that pops into my mind is just the how we make and manufacture flavors and all of that. All the wonderful partnerships. All the wonderful different flavors that we've launched through the years. I think that's part of some of the most creative Epicurean adventures we send people on is how do we develop that next flavor? How do we create it? And I love the product lines that we've developed and all of those things. But, when we talk about the evolution of Bahama Bucks, you have to look at the product lines. You have to look at the flavor palette and just see how it has exploded. And when we do launch flavors, how they are so perfectly, aligned with whatever flavor that we happen to be launching.
Yeah, we've kept the main thing. We have not strayed from.
Yeah, so our snow, we're still the greatest snow on earth. Yep. And so I love that was, you go back and you had strawberry cheesecake, you had that, 10 years ago, or if you're a cinnamon person or, pick one, toasted coconut or whatever. I love that we have maintained the integrity of that flavor palette, but we're constantly letting it evolve and grow to stay relevant and really hip with the markets and what's happening.
I mean, what's evolved though, first is putting a sink at the Shaver Island.
Oh, absolutely.
When we first started, there was no sink there.
Right.
And talk about a mess.
Yeah.
And then really evolving what our shaver stations look like, to the topping management system, to the flavor rack. Do you remember our first flavor rack was those acrylic pegs?
I built it, of course.
Yeah. And they would break all the time. Pegs. Oh, my word. Yeah. Oh, and
wood and flavor, man, that was a great combo. But I stained it and sealed it. I thought it would hold. Yeah.
And then the pegs would break, and now your flavors are like all over. It looks like a crossword puzzle. Also, the KDS, like having a kitchen display, some way to keep orders.
And you know what? You were the queen of orders. I love that. You know, what people may not know is when you get into a shop, you're going to find your thing. I mean, you either love to shave, or you love mixing flavors, or you love working with people, or making smoothies, or whatever it is. You find your thing. And my thing was, man, I love to shave.
You were good at it.
Well, I wanted to be lightning good, right?
Besides the bottle flipping thing.
Yeah, I wanted to flip bottles, do the whole thing. But what was amazing about you is you could remember orders.
I could.
And I'm not talking like one order, two order, and every order is going to have 3, 4, 5 items on it. You could stack like 5 or 6 orders in your mind and not forget them. And I was always like, okay, that's way
I would just
smarter.
look at the person, and I would see them, like they would order maybe 5 snows for their family, and I could remember all of them. Go label the cups, you know. And I would picture that person, like if they ordered, you know, blueberry, I just would like picture them like blueberry, you know, and I would have to do something that helped me tie into them.
And it worked because it was absolutely amazing, and people couldn't believe you would never. And it's like that great waitress that comes up to your table and you got a party of 10 and they don't write anything down. You're like, this is going to be a disaster. And everything comes out perfect.
I always have faith in those, you know, there's a couple of times I'm like, but I'm like, I did the same thing.
You were brilliant at that. And that was one of the hard things to train. Even to this day, I still couldn't do it. I know. But to your point, now the register and
it's all in there.
It's all there. What magic is this?
It's not fair.
And we still screw it up sometimes, you know. But
evolving, like you said, having things delivered.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, when we first started, you went and got everything. I went and, you know, buy 50-pound sacks of sugar. You would buy all the supplies and bring them in. That's what we did every single morning.
You know, it's funny you say that, having things delivered, because you went with, you know, all of the products being delivered to us because we used to go get them. But now, like Uber Eats and DoorDash and all of those great partners that we partner with, you know, it goes out the other way. I'll never forget, we got a phone call in the OG store. I think Eric took it, and it was somebody's like, hey, will y'all deliver some snows? And we're like, what are you, an idiot? We don't deliver snows. And we just hung up. Who would deliver a snow, man?
That's just
There's
pizza.
No way. Yeah, 1 lane only. Call the pizza guy.
That's right.
And who would have thought, right? Know. And now all of the deliveries that we do across the nation.
Yeah, the party packs, things like that. That was not anything we were doing back then. The brand has evolved, and a lot of that has to do with our people that come up with great ideas and help us continue to improve the brand. But I think keeping the main thing, that we don't stray from that.
Yeah,
and we know what we do well. Let's just always make it better. How can we be faster? How can we bless our guests faster and be more efficient for the crew and better for the franchise, you know? So those are things that I feel like we've evolved. How has Bahama Bucks impacted you?
Wow.
We talked about this last night, actually.
Yeah, you know, and it is really interesting the impact that a business has on you, because I think at first you feel like you're pouring into the business and it's sucking the life right out of you. And a lot of entrepreneurs and small business people feel like that. But as that's happening, 2 things are actually happening. It is you're pouring your life into something that does start taking root and growing, but it's also growing you. Mm-hmm. It's growing you as a person. It's growing you as a leader, which makes you a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better son, daughter.
I mean, but like only if you allow it. I think it can make you a worse person if
you
allow
it. Can. There are those moments where we're like, we are terrible people, you know, or whatever it is. But I think when it impacts you, I think what's interesting about developing a brand is as it starts growing and it grows beyond you, is the impact it has on others. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest impact that I see is, you know, we were serving a mini vacation out of one tiny snow shack, and then we did 2. And then we did 3. And what we realized is that positive impact was well beyond us. And now we have a franchise family that is probably serving people better than you and I ever could. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at the impact that has on you, it keeps you humble, it keeps you grounded. And to your point, you keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. And you got to see the guest and say, what do they really want?
Yeah.
And how do we deliver it? So how about you? What would you say impacted you?
It's all I know. You know, we've done this for 35 years.
True.
I've had a couple of, side jobs, like, I don't know, cleaning offices, janitorial services, because that's what paid the bills.
Yeah.
But as far as working for another company, I haven't, except back in high school and college. So it's all I know. So that is a loaded question. How has this impacted me? I mean, it's, there are no words. They're so profoundly it's grown us. It's made us truly rely on the Lord. I think all of those years that we were struggling and not really getting answers to why isn't this growing faster? Why isn't, and just leaning on knowing that God put this in your heart, in my heart to do, and Eric, and that you trust that. You have to trust in the Lord, even as we've been able to reflect back on these last 35 years by doing these conversations. I pulled out some old journals that I was really good at journaling back in the early years,
you were.
Because I think that's where I just found the release. And I tried to dive into some of those recently. And when I think about the way Bahama Bucks has impacted us, I go back to one specific entry that I put in one of my journals that I just wanted to share real quick, because this is how it impacts you, and you don't know it till you get on the other side of it.
Yeah, years later.
But on April 24th of 2000.
10 years in.
Yeah, we are 10 years in.
Okay.
I write in my journal, and that the quote at the top of this page says, "Use what you have to enrich the lives of others, and you will soon find your own cup running over with joy." April 24th, 2000, Bahama Bucks, well, it's coming along. Blake and I really struggled this winter, and we are truly getting worn out. We've done Bucks for 10 years now, and we're hoping for much better results. We're fighting depression, discouragement, weepiness, and I really feel like Satan's trying to bring us down, and we can't let that happen. Our parents believe we need to move back to Lubbock because we're still in Arizona. And we just don't know. We're praying about direction, and we're beginning to realize that Bucks is our ministry, and we need to get a better attitude. Blake and I have had a lot of conversations, and we're trying so hard to keep our chins up. I love Blake so much, and I feel bad for him because he works so hard. Yesterday was Easter, and we stayed home. We had a good day with the kids. We hid hard-boiled eggs for them. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no telling. Blake hid an egg for me, and he put his last $5 in it. I loved it, and his gift meant so much to me, and he's such a great man. Lord, just help us with our attitudes and help us enrich others as you have enriched us. And then at the bottom, it just says, flowers can grow even on dung hills. And
so you're the flower in that analogy, I take it, and I'm the dung.
That's how a business can impact you. But you just dig your heels in and you do it together.
Yeah.
And I think that the impact has been beyond, it's just, you can't put it into words.
Yeah, emotionally, spiritually, all the things, good and bad. And I remember that $5 because I was going to buy a burrito. And I was at the counter, and I'm like, man, Kippi needs an Easter egg, but there's this burrito that I really wanted.
Well, we would have shared it.
I'm glad you wrote that down, because I remember that moment, and those are the times that are real, that we gloss over now because we always look forward and we don't reflect back a whole lot. But those are the prices we pay. So the impact is there, but I think it builds a solid foundation, and that's what the big thing is. There is, even in your circumstances, we said, okay, we got to find joy. We still raise a family. We're going to do the right thing. And regardless of whether it works or not, we just had to press on. and we wanted to quit, but not today.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good question.
What legacy do you hope Bahama Bucks leaves behind? Do we hope Bahama Bucks will leave behind? I mean,
we've touched on a few of this, but I think it needs to be a brand that is probably equated with affordable joy, where, and not as a legacy, but as a brand where people know, man, I can go there, and for one $5 Easter egg, man, we can have a little bit of happiness and a reprieve. Mm-hmm. And as I look at the legacy, I think, and that's probably a terrible answer for a legacy question, but I think when I look at the legacy of Bahama Bucks, it is going to be based on being the blessing, providing a great experience, but raising new leaders that live beyond us and grow the company beyond us, because we're not going to be here forever.
No.
And the legacy says, how well can we pass that torch? Mm-hmm. And if we pass it well, then the brand lives beyond us. It grows wildly, bigger than we would ever imagine. And next generation of leaders takes it and does their thing with it, because we've carried it a certain way in a certain time. And our time is going to, there's a time where we're going to hand it off. Not today, but we're going to hand it off. And that's an exciting journey for us in a different season for us.
Yeah,
so
that would be so cool.
Yeah. So, because it's funny, Kippi and I had this conversation the other day. We're like, 35 years. We're like, we don't even feel like we haven't even got started good.
I know.
There's so much to do all the time that it's like, man, 35 years, and we still were like, hey, do you think we'll ever get there where we feel like, it's not where you've made it. I don't know that anybody ever gets that, but it's almost where it, and I'm like, we've been around longer than most brands, and we just feel like we're just warming up.
Yeah.
How about you? What would you say to the legacy question?
Well, I mean, if you work hard and you're kind, amazing things will happen.
Yeah.
But you can't get around the hard work.
Yeah.
It just is. I think anytime you and I have read stories about businesses that had quote unquote overnight success, maybe they grew in a year, oftentimes that foundation's just not there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case for every business. I'm just saying you read a lot of those stories. And I think we've built a good foundation with our teams, and that I hope I don't know, when you were talking about it growing, after we're not here anymore, that would be...
That'd be great.
It would be great.
And I think why this is such a relevant question for us is because just a mere, 6-7 months ago, we helped Tom and Cindy, who had been owners, they've passed the torch and now they sit on the board. So we've walked this out. And when you walk things like that out, you're not only providing a path for them, you're also laying the foundation for your path.
Yep.
And I think so that those are some of those hard conversations that we've had on how do we structure it well so that the next generation of leaders and the leaders that have been established now that are coming up behind us have the greatest propensity for success. Yeah. Because that's really the legacy. Legacy means it continues.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
But, I always, I'm I love the sport of track. And when you talk about handing the torch or passing the baton, and you think about that, the first leg's not usually your fastest leg. You know, when you pass that baton, the next leg is faster, and then the next one's faster. And that is cool. That is so cool.
Because it will get better, and we're not going to run all four.
I don't think we can anymore. Yeah.
All right, Miss Kippi, what excites you most about the future of Bahama Bucks?
Yeah, what we just talked about. I think we have some good products coming down the road that excite me for the brand. I also feel like the team that we're putting together, some of our franchisees that we have in place are making a huge impact on the brand as well. Yeah. And I feel like we're about to hit a new growth and a different trajectory, and I'm excited about that.
I am so excited too about the future. I mean, we kind of know what's on the horizon a little bit, but the growth, the scalability, what we have built, and what is about to happen is fantastic. And I'm so excited to be about a part of this next phase that we're going to go through of growth and everything. And it is exciting, and it's exciting on not just for our teams and for our people, but for our guests. I mean, we are figuring out how to serve people faster and cleaner and better and elevate that experience. And so I love that we can elevate the experience for the guest, for the franchisee as they grow. But I think what I'm most excited about is a lot of times we're helping franchisees realize a dream that they wanted as well in our franchise family. And as we continue to expand, I love growing those dreams.
Yeah.
And not just for us, but for the guests, for our teams, for our franchise families, and just seeing a neat future. And what's so neat, I think, is we get a front row seat to seeing an idea that we started way back when now serve joy all across the nation and create these mini vacations all across the nation from just this tiny snow shack that was founded and started in Lubbock, Texas, with a crazy idea and these college students that just put it together and didn't want to quit.
Well, and I think to the future where we're looking is I love how some brands have made their products super available, like quick drive-through. There's no indoor seating. You walk up, that's it. It's really not an experience. It's like I'm getting my product, I'm in and I'm out.
Sure.
And there's a place for that, no doubt about it. And I'm a consumer of those types of brands. But I also think that people are people throughout the generations, and they want a place to go. They want to get out of the home. They want a place to go. Where can I take the kids? Where can I take a date? And I love that we're not trying to get away from that. I think even if we do these walk-up drive-through concepts, we always want to find a place where the guests can stay and they can go to Bahama Bucks and not just be a stop.
Yeah.
And the future, I feel like, even though we have everything at our fingertips and it's fast and deliverable, and people are still human. They want to have human connection, and that Bahama Bucks is going to provide that. And we're not getting away from that.
Right.
And we want to be that place that people go and celebrate, and we're not changing the mini vacation.
Yeah. And I think in short, what it really means is we are super excited about the flavor of your life portion of Bahama Bucks, because that's what we're built to do. And I think that kind of encapsulates all that we are.
Yeah.
Is we just want to flavor your life. And so it's been a flavorful journey with you. It's been a flavorful journey with our teams and our franchisees and our family members and everyone out there. It has been a fun journey, and I've loved that everybody's come together to help flavor other people's lives, and that's been a great journey.
Wouldn't it be cool if we get to do this when we celebrate 50 years? We'll need our hearing aids.
Yeah, oxygen bottle right here. Yeah. I'm like, wow, okay, let's hope, right?
That's right. I'll get my hair done, get fixed, and we'll get over here and do our 50-year.
Then we'll tell all the real stories, right?
That's true. No.
That we remember.
That we won't remember anything. No, I'm excited about the future. I really am, and it's going to take hard work. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take our team. But
and as Stephanie Knox always says, it's going to be great.
It's going to be great. That's right. So
well done.
Thanks, Blake.
Yeah, thank you.